The restaurant buzzed with laughter, forks clinking against plates. But all the noise sharpened when the waiters pulled up an extra chair at the long mahogany table. Heads turned, smirks spread, and whispers hissed the moment he sat down. A man in his mid-30s, sleeves rolled up, hands rough from mopping floors. Daniel Hayes, the janitor. A single dad who had no business, according to them, sitting among silk ties and designer dresses. His son, a 10-year-old boy, clutched his father's hand under the table, sensing the storm of ridicule aimed at him. They mocked, they sneered, until the glass doors swung open and the CEO herself walked in. Every breath seemed to vanish as she pointed directly at him and said, "He's the only one I came for." Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. The laughter didn't just sting, it cut. "What's next? He'll serve the drinks too?" one man snorted, his Rolex catching the chandelier light. Across the table, a woman leaned toward her friend and whispered loud enough for Daniel to hear, "Imagine raising a kid in dirty overalls and still daring to sit here." Daniel kept his jaw tight. Years of late nights cleaning offices taught him how to absorb humiliation like a sponge. But tonight, with his son Ethan beside him, every insult felt heavier. He leaned toward Ethan and murmured, "Keep your chin up, buddy. You belong anywhere you sit." But kindness doesn't silence cruelty. A younger man, maybe mid-20s, leaned back in his chair and tossed a napkin at Daniel. "Why don't you wipe the table down while you're here, janitor?" Ethan's eyes filled with tears, but Daniel caught his hand beneath the table and squeezed. "Don't cry," he whispered. "Strength isn't about shouting back." Just then the doors opened. The CEO, Victoria Lane, mid-40s, commanding presence, every step echoing like authority itself, entered. Conversations froze. People straightened their ties, adjusted their dresses. She didn't glance at the board members. She didn't glance at the investors. Her gaze locked on Daniel. "Mister, I'd make sure the world knew who you really are." The room that once mocked him now sat silent, shame thick in the air. The room was so quiet you could hear the faint hum of the air conditioning. Forks hovered midair, glasses sat untouched. Daniel's son Ethan stared at the CEO with wide eyes, squeezing his father's arm as if to ask, "Is this real?" Daniel cleared his throat, his voice low. "Ma'am, I think there's some mistake. I'm just..." "Just what?" Victoria interrupted gently, her eyes steady on his. "Just a janitor? Just a single dad scraping by?" "No, Mr. Hayes. You are the man who showed compassion when everyone else turned away. And tonight I want you to know your worth far exceeds the titles these people throw around." A few of the board members shifted uncomfortably, their smugness evaporating like steam. One man in a navy suit, Leonard, chuckled nervously. "Victoria, surely you're exaggerating. We're here to discuss the quarterly review, not charity cases." Her head snapped toward him, and the look she gave was colder than ice. "Leonard, you've sat at this table for years, and not once have you demonstrated the kind of humanity Mr. Hayes did in a single act. You think I value your numbers more than integrity? That's where you're wrong." The blood drained from Leonard's face. Daniel wanted to disappear. His instinct told him to get up, grab Ethan's hand, and leave before things escalated. But Ethan tugged his sleeve and whispered, "Dad, don't go. Stay. Please." Something about the boy's small voice, the trembling hope in it, pinned Daniel to his chair. He looked at Ethan and saw the reflection of every sacrifice he had made. The nights he skipped dinner so Ethan could eat. The mornings he worked 2 jobs so his son could have a backpack for school. Victoria placed a folder on the table and slid it toward Daniel. I've had my assistant look into your background. Single father, 2 jobs, perfect attendance at your son's parent-teacher meetings despite working double shifts. Do you know what that tells me? Daniel swallowed hard.
Back. Leonard slammed a palm against the table. This is madness. He cleans floors. And you clean reputations after scandals, she fired back without missing a beat. Don't talk to me about worth. Daniel sat frozen, every muscle tense, as the weight of her words settled in. Advisor? Him? He had no formal education beyond high school, no business experience beyond sweeping up conference rooms. His pulse throbbed in his temples. I can't, he stammered, voice cracking. I don't belong here. Ethan's small hand covered his. Dad, you always told me we belong anywhere as long as we're kind. You said that, remember? The boy's words cut through the fog of doubt. Daniel blinked at him, his throat tightening. He had said that, over and over again, trying to shield Ethan from the cruelty of the world. Now those words came back to hold him steady. Victoria leaned down, speaking quietly but firmly. Don't let their laughter define you. Let your kindness do that. The world has enough people chasing power. What it needs is men like you. For the first time in years, Daniel's shoulders straightened, his chest lifted. The shame that had clung to him peeled away, layer by layer. The kindness he once thought invisible had found its voice, but not everyone welcomed it. Leonard's tone turned sharp. Victoria, you're making a fool of yourself and us. If this janitor sits at our table, I walk. Then walk, she replied without hesitation, and take your arrogance with you. My company doesn't need men who measure worth by dollar signs alone. He sputtered, face flushing, but he had no comeback. Marissa scoffed. This is reckless. What can he possibly advise you on? Victoria smiled faintly. On what truly matters. Because while the rest of you were calculating profits, this man was investing in people. And people are the foundation of everything we do. The weight of her words pressed down on the room like gravity itself. Ethan whispered, Dad, they're all quiet now. Daniel looked around. Those who mocked anyone here disagrees. There's the door. No one moved. The boy who once felt invisible looked at his father and whispered, Dad, you're finally seen. Daniel swallowed hard, his hand trembling as he placed it over his son's. Nobody. We're seen. Both of us. And for the first time in years, Daniel Hayes believed it. The tension in the restaurant lingered long after Victoria's words echoed across the table. Daniel sat rigid, his hands folded tightly as if bracing for someone to laugh again, to tear him down the moment the CEO left. But no one dared. Not a soul. Victoria gestured for the servers to resume, and slowly the clatter of plates returned. Yet the energy had shifted. The mockery that once filled the room had been replaced by a fragile silence, laced with curiosity and unease. Ethan leaned close to his father, whispering, Dad, are we really supposed to be here? Daniel exhaled shakily, brushing his son's hair back. I don't know, buddy. But right now, it feels like maybe we are. From the far end of the table, Leonard wasn't finished. His jaw was tight, his pride wounded. He leaned forward, his tone dripping with condescension. Let's be honest here. This is a charity stunt. You've got no idea how to advise a CEO, Hayes. You'll drown in one meeting. Daniel met his glare for the first time that night.
His voice was calm, but it carried weight. Maybe I don't know numbers like you do, but I know what it's like to sweep a floor after men like you walk across it without looking down. I know what it's like to choose between buying dinner and paying for my son's asthma medicine. And I know that people matter more than your bottom line. If that makes me unqualified, so be it. The table froze. Leonard's smirk faltered. For once, the janitor's voice had cut sharper than any insult. Victoria smiled faintly, her eyes glinting with approval. That, Mr. Hayes, is exactly why I need you beside me. Because the higher up people climb, the easier it is to forget what it feels like down there. You never forgot. A server poured wine into glasses, but Daniel's remained untouched. He only sipped water. Thank him. Evelyn's eyes filled with tears. It was you. My husband passed a few months later, but that night, that kindness, it carried me. She turned to the table. We sit here with our power and our wealth, and this man has more integrity than all of us combined. A ripple of shame moved through the crowd. Some shifted in their chairs, some dropped their gazes to their plates. The very people who mocked him now sat face to face with his humanity. Ethan gripped his father's hand tighter, whispering, "See, Dad, people remember." Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. For years, he believed kindness went unnoticed, that being the man who always gave, who always sacrificed, meant fading into the background. But here, in this glittering room, that quiet kindness roared louder than wealth. Victoria stood, her presence commanding the room once more. Let this be clear. Daniel Hayes is not here because of pity. He's here because compassion is the rarest form of leadership. And if anyone at this table cannot accept that, then you are free to leave. One by one, no one moved. Even Leonard, red-faced and humiliated, stayed seated, though his jaw clenched with silent rage. Victoria turned to Daniel. Tomorrow morning, you will walk into my office, not as a janitor, not as a man mocked for his calloused hands, but as someone I trust to remind me of what matters. Will you accept that? Daniel's heart pounded. Every instinct screamed to say no, to retreat back into the shadows where no one expected anything of him. But then he looked at Ethan. His boy's eyes glimmered with something Daniel hadn't seen before. Pride, unshakable and fierce. I'll do it, Daniel said finally, his voice steady. But only if I can still be the father my son needs. I won't trade his childhood for your boardroom. Victoria nodded. That's exactly why you're the right man for the job. Ethan threw his arms around his father's waist, beaming. Dad, you did it! For the rest of the evening, Daniel sat at the table, not as an outsider, but as an equal. The same voice, one act of courage for the whole room to go silent. And for once, silence felt like respect.